Hey guys, I just wanted to get on here really quick and talk to you about Chapter 4 for our Revolutionary War writing. You know that I will, of course, be on Google Hangout to chat with you, whether you want to text through that or video chat or audio chat. But I just wanted to give you just some of this information here to hopefully help you understand a little better what I'm looking for. So if you look at your graphic organizer, you'll see that Chapter 4 is going to be the British Army versus the Continental Army. So what I want there is I want you to tell me about each of the armies. Tell me all about the British Army and tell me all about the Continental Army. So some of those things that I want to hear you talk about are who made up those armies. So the British Army we know was British soldiers, but it was also paid soldiers, right? Do you remember talking about that? The British soldiers were soldiers who were getting paid. This was their job, was to fight in the army. And then we also paid other countries, Britain also paid other countries to come and fight. So we talked about the Hessians a little bit. We talked about some of those soldiers that came from different countries that Britain kind of asked them to come over and fight against us, the colonists. So that is British, who made up the British Army, right? And then I want you to talk about also what were some of the strategies that they used to fight. Do you remember what it was called when we talked about the way the British Army fought? Remember, we said they would stand face to face, and they used to call it a gentleman's war, right? And they would just stand, and then they would just shoot at each other, and then the next row would go and shoot, and the next row would shoot. But when we read about the Continental Army, we talked about how they had to come up with a lot of different strategies because we didn't have enough men to just stand there and shoot or get shot at, right? So they had to hide in trees, they had to hide behind bushes, they had to ambush those British soldiers. So they had to think of really, really unique ways to fight the British because remember, the Continental Army, they were made up of volunteers and storekeepers and farmers and people who've never ever fought in their lives. They didn't get paid. They simply fought because they wanted to be free, and they were willing to do whatever they could to fight for freedom from King George and Great Britain. So I want you to talk to me, or not talk, type, tell me what they wore. So if you remember, the British soldiers, they were the red coats, right? Lobsterbacks. They had their nice uniforms that Britain was able to pay for them. And then you had the Continental Army. They didn't really have uniforms, especially not in the beginning. Wives and women would sew whatever fabric they had. They barely had shoes half the time. They were marching just in their feet wrapped up in cloth. Did they get paid? No, they didn't. We didn't have any money to give them. There was no government here yet. And you'll find a lot of information in your social studies book, okay? Pull that out. You already have notes. Now, on Google Classroom, I posted the notes that we took in class. You also have a copy in your blue folder. But use your book, and if you wanted to look stuff up on Google online, however you want to do that, you can do it. Watch some videos. You know the British Army versus Continental. We talked about this so much in class, and I think that you guys have enough information to give. But if you start on page 182 in your social studies book, there's a whole page about the Continental Army. The next page is all about the British Army, okay? We talked about some motivations, and that'll be on page 184 and 185. And then 186 will be your war strategies. So I wanted to tell you what I want listed, and this will also be in my assignment sheet throughout the week, okay? But I want to know who fought, okay? I want to know what they wore. I want to know war strategies, okay? And I want to know, oops, that's a little sloppy. And I want to know motivation. Okay, now, One other thing that we talked about with the British soldiers and the Continental soldiers was that the British were only here because they were paid to do it. They didn't really care. They were doing their job, right? But the Continental soldiers, they had that self-motivation in their hearts. They wanted to be free. This was not just a job to them. This was going to change their lives for the better. It was going to help their families and their children. And they had so much motivation, which helped them, okay? So who fought? What they wore, as in like what clothes what kind of clothes they wore. So tell me, because that's going to be comparing both armies. Some of the war strategies and motivation. So did the British soldiers have motivation? Maybe money, right? They wanted to get paid. But think about the colonists and that Continental Army and what they were motivated for. You'll find, like I said, so much in your book. But that's really what I want you to think about as we're writing chapter 4. So get in your head, get out your notes. That's what your notes look like. It's just as informational writing. But like I said, I also put it on the Google Doc. All right? But if you look, we took all those notes about Continental Army, notes about the British Army, okay? War strategies, we have a note page for that. And we talked about allies a little bit, but don't get there yet. You can, but don't go crazy over that. I think that you've got plenty of information. I'm just really looking for maybe a paragraph about the British Army and a paragraph about the Continental Army. Or if you wanted to, you could do a couple different paragraphs, like one paragraph about what they wore. So the Continental Army was made up of merchants and farmers, and they had to wear rags. The British Army was made up of trained, paid soldiers. That could be one paragraph. The other paragraph could be about their war strategies. The British did this, the Continental did this. All right, so you can set it up any way that's easy for you, but I'm here to help you throughout it, okay? So reach out to me if you need, and this was a little longer than I wanted, this 7-minute video. All right, you can do this, and I'm here for you, but I know that you can do this because I know you guys are experts in this at this point, okay? All right, I'll talk to you soon.